In the 4 years before he was elected President of the United States, Biden earned more than $17 million. However, his fortune is estimated to be less than half that amount. Where did the rest of the money go? And why, while earning millions, has Biden failed to get rich? Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Our character in today's issue is one of the most powerful men on the planet, US President Joe Biden. In January 2017, the day a billionaire took office for the first time in American history, middle-class Joe Biden boarded an Amtrak train from Union Station in Washington, D.C. to Delaware. At the time, he had a modest fortune, typically of someone who had worked in elected office all his adult life. Biden's capital was estimated at $2.5 million and consisted mainly of retirement savings and real estate. But he expected to increase his income soon. And so it turned out. By the end of 2017, Biden and his wife Jill had already earned $11,100,000. The following year, they received another $4,600,000, then $1 million in 2019 and $630,000 in 2020. The story of how Biden got rich by stepping down as vice president and using his fame to sell books and give speeches has been told many times. But a closer look at the numbers raises a question no one has yet asked. Why hasn't Biden gotten richer? If someone starts with $2.5 million capital and earns $17,300,000 during a boom in markets, one would expect his personal fortune to be more than $8 million. So what happened to Biden's money? Well, $7 million went to taxes, another $1,300,000 to charity, $180,000 to pay his servants, and about $80,000 to pay mortgage interest. Subtract that and you still get several million more than Biden's estimated wealth. An analysis of Biden's financial declarations, property registers, and payroll records shows it to be $8 million. There is a possibility that Biden, who shares his wealth with his wife Jill, gave some of that money to the other family members, or maybe just spent it all. To bring that fortune down to the $8 million mark, the current US president would have needed to spend an average of around $2,000 a day during the 4 years he spent in retirement. The White House did not respond to multiple requests for comment on Biden's finances. Much can be understood about how the president will manage public money by looking at how he manages his own. Donald Trump may belong to a party that prides itself on fiscal conservatism, but anyone who even superficially knows his financial history with huge debts due to extravagant but failed projects could tell immediately that this guy is unlikely to keep a close eye on the national budget. Trump hasn't. Even before the pandemic, the budget deficit jumped 68% largely because of significant tax cuts that benefited rich people and corporations. Biden has other priorities. He seems determined to give money to the middle class, not the rich. He has already passed $1,009 billion pandemic relief bill and has proposed a $6 trillion spending bill. A close look at his personal finances, however, suggests that Biden and Trump have something in common. Both are not afraid of borrowing and love to spend money. So don't be surprised if the national debt continues to grow. And now we'll tell you about the origins of the elderly president's fortune. Biden's grandfather was one of the executives of American Oil. His father tried several businesses, but they all failed and the family fell on hard times. Later, the politician's father was able to get a job as a car salesman. Joe himself was not interested in a stable career. While attending the University of Delaware in the early 1960s, he asked friends, "Guys, after graduation, you're guaranteed a job at DuPont with a decent starting salary and lifetime security, but you'll never make more than $40,000 a year, about $350,000 today. Or you can take a job with half the salary, no guarantees, but your possible income is unlimited. Which will you choose?" For himself, the answer was obvious. He told his friends he was willing to take the risk. After graduating from law school, Biden took out a loan from the bank that financed his father's business and opened his own law firm in downtown Wilmington, Delaware. He wasn't particularly good at saving money. When the firm won its first big case, Biden received a check for $5,000. He and his wife, Nelia, spent all the money on a four-poster bed, a dining room set, and a desk. The bill was substantial, maybe even more than the check, but the furniture wasn't bad either. Biden wrote in his 2007 memoir, Promise Me Dad. It was our adventure, and Nelia had so much faith in our future. Pretty quickly, some real estate came into that future. In about 6 months, Biden bought 3 houses. One of them was on a 32-hectare plot on Maryland, where he had dreams of one day building an estate for his parents and siblings. To start with, he borrowed more money from his father-in-law and from banks, while he and Nelia looked for tenants and rented out their property. Biden and his wife and sons lived in the small house for free in exchange for running the swimming pool of a country club nearby. Even with the rental income, the family was barely making ends meet. Biden himself admits it in his memoirs. I was constantly on the verge of going into deficit. That did not stop him from thinking big. After a tragic car accident in 1972 that killed Nelia and their young daughter, Biden bought a new home for himself and his sons, the 930-square-foot DuPont mansion in Wilmington, which cost $185,000. The equivalent of $930,000 today. At the time of the purchase, Biden was a senator and earned about $43,000 a year. Over the years, he frequently remortgaged the house and took out loans far in excess of its original value. In 1996, Biden sold the mansion for $1,200,000 and bought a nearby plot of land for $350,000. He built a new house there and then began to remortgage it regularly as well. Biden's 3 children went to public schools and colleges thanks to the money he borrowed. Home ownership is the way most middle-class families save, the way most middle-class families build assets, and in many cases, that's how you pay for a child's college education. You borrow against the house. Biden explained at a Ministry of Housing and Urban Development event in 2015. That's how I was able to send my kids to college. In 2001, when his daughter Ashley was attending Tulane University, he was paying off at least half a dozen loans worth more than $700,000. If you assess all these decisions from a business perspective, they are illogical. Biden has spent too much and saved or invested very little. But if assessed in terms of quality of life, they seem more sensible. Middle-class Joe wanted to live like upper-class people, buy big houses and educate his children in expensive schools, so he borrowed a lot. It's often the case in the US today that people, even those with large incomes, don't have spare cash, says Megan Gorman, a lawyer and managing partner of a firm that does financial planning for the wealthy. If you look at the Biden family's tax returns, you see a couple who have accumulated some assets over their lifetime, like retirement savings, life insurance, some other savings. And it's not some elaborate massive plan to become ultra-wealthy people. When Biden became vice president, he had extra income to pay off the house. In the spirit of Trump, he rented out a cottage on his property in Wilmington for $26,400 a year. The tenant was reportedly the U.S. Secret Service, which provides protection for Biden. What did the Bidens spend on? Just because you don't have much spare cash doesn't mean you're bankrupt. When Biden left the vice presidency in 2017, his fortune was estimated at $2.5 million. He had a life insurance policy and several retirement savings accounts, but the backbone of his capital was a house in Delaware and a federal pension that guaranteed him a lifetime income of about $160,000 a year. In June 2017, Biden fulfilled a long-standing promise to his wife and shelled out $2,700,000 for a 450-square-meter summer home in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. It turned out to be a good investment. Thanks to skyrocketing home prices during the pandemic, the house is now valued at $3,400,000, 25% more than the amount the Bidens paid 4 years ago. But apart from this instance, Biden appears to have done little to increase his fortune through investment. The politician has made it a rule not to invest in shares in individual companies to avoid ethical conflicts in his work. But he has not even used diversified investment funds, which ethics experts often recommend as a way to avoid conflicts of interest. The 2019 declaration showed that the Bidens held less than $200,000 in variable annuity funds, an annual premium that immediately turns into shares, owned by an insurance company, with the rest of their money simply held in bank deposits, public pension accounts, life insurance policies, and holding companies set up to manage fees from books and public appearances. By not actively investing in the stock market, the Bidens missed out on potential returns that could have increased their capital by millions. Why do you think the president needs a lot of money when he owns an entire country?